Rishiji, when we talk about Dharma and Vedic Vidya, if you have to tell somebody who's uninitiated, can you tell us how the knowledge of Dharma and Vedic Vidya enhances an individual's life?
Yes, and Kamal, there's something very important at the root of this. So, because I was born into the culture of being a Christian, and I don't have anything against them. Nobody was ever mean to me, but I didn't think their story was complete, and it was their story that bothered me. Jesus seemed like a very friendly person, but the world was colonized in his name and destroyed in his name. That didn't make sense. His father seemed like a really angry, mean, punishing individual. And you only have one lifetime, and you go to hell, you can go to hell forever. And that's really not very endearing, you might say. It's a fear-based system. It's a blind faith system. Don't ask questions, just shut up and do what you're told, and you'll be okay. Well, that just didn't work for me. So the difference with the Dharma culture is that you're supposed to ask questions. You proceed by asking questions. It's called Adhikari. To be Adhikari means, and this word Adhikari, I'll tell you a little linguistics, since that's one of the things I love doing. So Adhikari means when you're qualified, the guru will decide that you're qualified for the next step of learning. So Adhikari means qualification over many lifetimes. So the most important difference between the Vedic civilization and the Western civilization is that everyone in Western civilization, which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all the Abrahamics, plus modern science, are trapped in a one lifetime paradigm. They have one tiny lifetime to live. To me, this is the smallest cage or box you could put someone in. It makes you small-minded. And so we call it in Sanskrit Kudratma instead of Mahatma. So I could see that it was all Kudratma. But the Vedic viewpoint was Mahatma. And the next thing it was, if you read the Gita, is user-friendly. Krishna says, I'm teaching you this, Arjun, because you're my friend. Well, that's not threatening. He's not saying, if you learn this, Arjun, or I'm sending you to burn in hell. He's saying, you're my friend. I'm here to make friends with you, to reintroduce myself to you. You have many lifetimes. There's no rush, but then again, if you want to do it now, I'm ready. So sounded pretty user-friendly to me. And then the next thing is, and this is the way I like to say it. So the Abrahamics call themselves pretty much people of a book. Okay? Because they have a book and they say, this is our book. Well, that's what religion means. It means religare, bound by a book of rules. That's the literal meaning of religion. So Hindus don't have a religion. So don't ever again call yourself my Hindu religion. That's a complete misuse of the language. Because you don't have a single book. The laws of Manu doesn't make you a Hindu. Doesn't make you a practitioner of the Vedic Dharma, more correctly, let's say. That's how I like to say it. I don't mind being called a Hindu, but I like Vedic Dharma better. The Sanatana Dharma culture. So if that's the case, then the Vedic Vidya, if they're the people of a book, we must be the people of a library. Now, in order to have a meaningful library, you have to have a language that doesn't degrade over time. And Sanskrit is the only language in our world that is as close to mathematics and a programming language as a language can get, which is based on roots, which has got a grammatical system of Panini with 4,000 grammatical rules, precise rules, whose phonetics is precise. So nothing about Sanskrit is allowed to change over time. So there's no drift of meaning. So this means that Vedic civilization is the only one whose answers are reliable. Because the rest of them, when Shakespeare wrote and when Chaucer wrote poetry in English, those poems 100 years later were useless. The English had drifted away so far. By 300 years, no one could read them, not even the people in England. So imagine how bad those poets felt. Whereas if you read the Sanskrit right now, it could be 10,000 years old, and you can read it the same today as you would have read it 10,000 years ago. So I began to see these things. I was a literature major, a philosophy minor, a psychology major. And Western psychology is just an accumulation of knowledge from India for the most part, that was taken. It's important to understand that not only was wealth taken, but there was a colonization of knowledge, which Western intellectuals stole, claimed was their own, and claimed it as their discoveries. It was actually called discovering it. It meant if nobody who was a Christian had printed it or spoken it, you could take it, call it your own, and release it as your theory. So Western civilization is so proud of itself, but in fact, it's an accumulation of stolen theories and objects from the rest of the world for the last 300-400 years, all in the name of Jesus. So I want you to understand that that is crazy. So what is the difference? Well, a Dharma culture, Dri is the root. Now the root of Dri is Ri, the Ritam. So the Ritam is the laws of nature, originally unwritten, but nature is permeated by laws. And those laws of nature are what make science. They're what make truth. So a Dharma culture is not a blind faith following of religious rules in a book given by authority. It is the decision to try to work in harmony with nature, first of all. So Dri is the essence of a thing, which if you take it away, it is no longer itself. That's the definition of the root of the word Dharma. So to follow Dharma is not to follow blindly. It's to follow knowingly that this is a code of nature. If you go against it, you'll get duk. You'll get suffering because it's the laws of nature. It's not like you're being punished. It's just the law. And if you work with it, you get suk. So the next thing to remember is that this is the only philosophy that lets us have time to go and improve ourselves. Not just time in one life, but time over many lives. So back to Adhikari. If Adhikari means your qualification this time, in Greeks, it became edukari, which in Greek meant to bring out what is inside. In English, it's education. Same word from the Sanskrit, just moving to Greek and then to English. But in education in English means to pile information on top of the person. It doesn't ask, are they qualified? So the English education is not really Adhikari. It just dumps a bunch of information on you, pre-packaged. So it's like frozen food dinners being fed to everybody. It's not designed for your qualification. So the Dharmic culture is a culture where everything is explained to you according to your level of hunger, interest, readiness, and ability and willingness for participation at that level. So this culture evaluated you to see if you were ready at every stage of the process. And we're going to talk more about that later, I think. But in my case, this also led me to become, without becoming first Vedic, I worked my way through college at a metaphysical bookstore called Circle Books in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they had every metaphysical book in English that exists in the English language that's worth reading. And I read all of them. I must have read 2,000 books. I was a voracious reader. And I worked at the bookstore so I could read them while I was working there. And I had access to this entire library of all the metaphysical literature of the world, which included the various translations of the Gita, the things that were coming out, the newest gurus that were coming to the West. So as I read and studied all of these things, I began to understand that this library was the repository of more knowledge than any other culture in the world had. So if you just like books like I did, where would you end up? You'd end up in Bharat. And you'd end up asking, well, then how does Vedic Dharma enhance your life? Well, how does working cooperatively with nature enhance your life? Well, first of all, you succeed instead of failing. Second of all, you get less pain. You get more real pleasure and joy because you're cooperating. So you get punya and not pap. Pap doesn't mean sin. Sin is a Christian concept. Pap means pain. It means demerits that lead to duk. And suk is because you got punya, because you cooperated with the laws of nature. So this brings us to astrology, which means, so I became a Western astrologer first. And then after spending 5 years in the ashram, I met a Jyotish guru who lived in London but was from India. His name was M.K. Gandhi. He was Ravi Shankar's astrologer, the Beatles, the Queen and King of England, or the royal family, rather. And he also was Maharishi's astrologer at the beginning of Maharishi's movement, TM. So he accepted myself and a friend of mine who were both Western astrologers. And I'd already done 5 years of ashram. So he said, well, you're Adhikari. So I'm just going to teach you the 9 mantras to the 9 grahas. And I want you to chant each one 100,000 times. So he told us, if you chant 900,000 planetary mantras, I'll teach you Jyotish. So now I'm 28 years old after 5 years in the ashram. So I spent the next 3 months, my friend and I did 12 hours a day chanting mantras. And he then taught us Jyotish. So after being in the ashram, I was a yogi trained, brahmachari. Then I got a guru of Jyotish. So now karma was no longer a theory to me. I could see it unfolding in the person's chart. I could see their doshas. I could see their gunas. I could see the grahas opening a chapter for them and giving them a download of particular karmas that they had created. So I became able to see, not in theory, not just believe, but see the unfolding of karmic events that were scheduled from previous lives. So I could go on, but this Dharma is not a theory-based culture. It's theory and practice and science-based culture. And you have a much wider worldview. So you become Mahatma. The point of Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, and Sva, one's own Dharma, is to make you Mahatma and to give you a big view of many lifetimes and a big view of everyone else. So to me, I think this Namaste culture is the one where I say to you, I see that you're an Atma also, and I respect you as an amazing being on a long journey. So last thing I'll say is, I renamed the universe the university. As far as I'm concerned, we're all college students or grade school students, depends on the Adhikari. So if someone's in kindergarten, you don't start teaching them PhD knowledge. And this is why the Vedic civilization does not try to coerce or force people to learn it. We wait until they ask. We wait until they're ready. Because we know that you don't teach a third grader high school knowledge. You don't teach a high schooler college knowledge. And you don't teach a sophomore PhD knowledge. So this is the grace of the Vedic civilization. No coercion, no conversion, just friendly conversation.
Thank you so much, Rishiji. That was very insightful.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.